I never thought I'd be the type of person to kick someone out of my home, especially not one of my closest friends. But the night it happened, I swear something in me just snapped. So for context, I, 27F, live in a small but cozy one-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle. I've been here for about 3 years, and it's my safe space. I worked hard to get this place, juggling 2 jobs at the time just to afford the deposit, and it means more to me than just 4 walls. It's where I finally feel like I'm in control of my own life. One of my biggest rules, and honestly my only non-negotiable one, is no smoking inside. It's not just about preference. The building is old, and the walls practically soak up smells. On top of that, I have asthma. Even secondhand smoke sets me off, tight chest, wheezing, the whole deal. I can tolerate it if someone smokes outside and comes back in, but indoors? Absolutely not. It's the one boundary I've made crystal clear to every guest. Enter my friend, Lena, not her real name. We've been friends since college, roommates for a year, countless late-night study sessions, trips together, the works. She's always been the more rebellious one. You know the type, skips class to go to concerts, dates the kind of guys who play in garage bands, smokes casually even though she always swears she's cutting back. Despite our differences, I've always loved her energy. She's the kind of friend who can make a boring Tuesday night feel like an adventure. So when she called me up saying she needed a place to crash for a week, just until I figure some stuff out, I didn't hesitate. I told her yes immediately. But I also said, one rule, Lena. No smoking inside. Not even once. She laughed it off like, come on, you know me, I'd never do that to you. I believed her. Maybe I shouldn't have. The first couple nights were fine. We ordered takeout, binge-watched old sitcoms, stayed up late reminiscing about dumb college stories. It felt almost nostalgic, like we were 20 again. But on the third night, everything changed. I was in my bedroom, scrolling on my phone before bed, when I smelled it. That faint but unmistakable sharpness in the air. Cigarette smoke. At first I thought I was imagining it. My windows face the alley, and sometimes the smell drifts in if neighbors are outside. But this was stronger. Closer. My chest tightened almost immediately. I got up, walked into the living room, and there she was. Lena, sitting cross-legged on my couch with an ashtray she must have dug out of her bag, casually smoking like it was the most normal thing in the world. I froze. I swear my stomach dropped like a stone. Lena, what are you doing? My voice cracked halfway through. She looked up at me, kind of guilty but also defensive. Relax. It's just one. I'll open a window. I just stood there, stunned. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an accident. She knew. She knew my one rule, my one boundary, and she broke it anyway. I remember shaking, partly from anger, partly from my chest tightening up. You can't do that in here. You know I can't breathe around it. Why would you? She rolled her eyes, exhaling smoke toward the cracked window. It's freezing outside. I didn't think it'd be a big deal. Not a big deal. That phrase felt like gasoline on a fire. I told her to put it out immediately, which she did, but not without muttering under her breath about me being dramatic. By then my head was pounding, and my chest hurt, and I couldn't even look at her without wanting to scream. I don't know what snapped in me, but the words came out before I could think. Get out. She blinked at me like I'd just slapped her. What? Are you serious? Yeah. Pack your stuff. You're not staying here if you can't respect one rule. The room went dead silent, except for my heart hammering. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. And then, she laughed. This bitter, disbelieving laugh. You're really kicking me out over a cigarette. And that's where I'm stuck. Because I did. Or at least, I tried to. She started arguing, raising her voice, and the whole night spiraled into this ugly fight I never thought we'd have. Lena refused to leave that night. She sat back down on my couch, arms crossed, and said, if you want me gone, you'll have to make me. If I thought she was bluffing when she said I'd have to make her leave, I was wrong. Dead wrong. Lena leaned back on my couch like she owned it, her legs stretched out on my coffee table. The same table I spent weeks saving up for, scrolling Craigslist until I found one I could afford. She put her dirty boots right on top of it and smirked at me. You're not serious, she said again, like I was just throwing some kind of tantrum and would calm down. It's one cigarette. I've known you for years, and you've never been this uptight. I could feel my hands shaking. I wanted to scream, but I also felt this weird lump in my throat, like I was on the edge of tears. I didn't want to cry, not in front of her, but my whole body was reacting. My chest was still tight from the smoke, my skin prickled with anxiety, and the betrayal. God, the betrayal burned almost worse than the cigarette smell itself. It's not about one cigarette, I said finally. My voice came out hoarse. It's about respect. I told you my rule. You broke it. You lied when you promised me you wouldn't. Her smirk faltered for just a second, but she doubled down. I didn't lie. I just didn't think you'd make this into some massive meltdown. You always make things bigger than they are. That stung. Hard. Because it wasn't the first time she'd said something like that to me. Back in college, whenever I'd get stressed about exams, or when our other roommates left dirty dishes piled up, she'd make jokes about me being uptight or high-strung. I always brushed it off, telling myself she didn't mean it. But standing there in my own apartment, watching her flick ashes into an old bottle cap, it didn't feel like a joke anymore. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. I'm not making this bigger than it is. You're the one who crossed the line, and now you're refusing to leave. Do you realize how messed up that is? She snorted. Oh, please. What are you going to do? Call the cops? Tell them your friend smoked half a cigarette in your precious little apartment? The way she said precious little apartment made me want to throw something. It was like she was mocking everything I'd worked for, everything I cared about. I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning, going between anger and this sinking sadness that maybe our friendship wasn't what I thought it was. Finally, I just said, if you won't leave tonight, then tomorrow morning you're gone. No arguments. She rolled her eyes, pulled out her phone, and said, whatever. I'll sleep on the couch. Good night, Mom. And with that, she turned her back on me, scrolling through her feed like nothing had happened. I wanted to scream, or cry, or maybe both. Instead, I went to my room, closed the door, and lay awake for hours listening to her laugh at TikToks while my apartment still reeked faintly of smoke. The next morning, I expected her to apologize, or at least to be sheepish about what had happened. That's what I told myself as I lay there staring at the ceiling after a sleepless night. But when I came out, she was already up, making herself coffee in my kitchen, humming like everything was normal. I tried to keep my voice even. So, are you ready to pack up? She turned, cup in hand, and gave me this look like I was being ridiculous. Are you seriously still on this? Come on. You're really gonna ruin our friendship over one mistake? I felt my throat tighten again. It wasn't one mistake. It was deliberate. You looked me in the eye and did it anyway. She sighed dramatically, slamming her mug on the counter. God, you're so unforgiving. Everyone makes mistakes, but you always hold on to things like their life or death. I wanted to say, yes, it feels like life or death when I can't breathe because of smoke in my lungs. But instead, I just clenched my fists and said, pack your stuff, Lena. I mean it. She crossed her arms. And where exactly am I supposed to go? Huh. You know I don't have anywhere else right now. You're just going to kick me onto the street? Her words cut, but not because they were true. She did have other options. Her parents lived 20 minutes away. She had at least 3 other friends in the city. But she made it sound like I was heartless for standing my ground. I opened my mouth to respond, but she cut me off. You're unbelievable. After everything we've been through, you're choosing your stupid no-smoking rule over me? Fine. Be that way. She stormed back to the couch, flopping down with her arms crossed like a sulking teenager. And that's when I realized she wasn't planning on leaving. Not now, not later. She was daring me to actually follow through. I stood in my kitchen, staring at her, my mind racing. Do I physically drag her out? Do I call someone? Do I just let her stay and pretend none of this happened? Every option felt impossible. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my landlord. Hi, my name. Just a reminder that we have the quarterly building inspection scheduled for this Friday. Please make sure your unit is clean and up to code. See you then. My heart sank into my stomach. Because if the inspector smelled smoke in my apartment, I was screwed. I looked up at Lena, who was now scrolling on her phone, acting like the queen of my apartment, and I realized, if she lit up even one more cigarette before Friday, I could lose my lease. And she had no intention of stopping. The second I read that text from my landlord, my stomach dropped like I'd just missed a step on the stairs. I stared at the screen, rereading the words over and over. Quarterly inspection. Friday. That was 3 days away. Normally, inspections were no big deal, Just a quick walkthrough to make sure the smoke detectors worked. The outlets weren't fried, no signs of damage. But if they stepped inside my apartment and it smelled like smoke, if there was even a hint of it lingering, I knew exactly what would happen. When I signed my lease, there was a bold, underlined clause. This is a non-smoking building. Any violation may result in termination of the lease. No second chances. No warnings. And Lena had already broken it. I stood there in my kitchen clutching my phone, my palms sweating. The smell was still faint in the air, even though she'd only smoked one. I'd left the windows open all night, sprayed half a bottle of Febreze, but I could still catch it, like a ghost of what she'd done. I couldn't afford to lose this place. Not after all I'd been through to get it. I glanced at Lena, sprawled on my couch like she didn't have a care in the world. Her hair was messy, her hoodie stained with what looked like coffee, her phone lighting up her face as she scrolled. She looked comfortable. Too comfortable. "Lena," I said finally, my voice sharper than I meant. She hummed in response without looking up. "I just got a message. My landlord's coming for an inspection on Friday." That got her attention. She lowered her phone and sat up a little. So if they smell smoke in here, I'm done. I'll lose this place. Do you get that?" She rolled her eyes. "It's been a day? The smell's already gone." "No, it's not." My voice cracked, frustration spilling out. "I can still smell it. And if I can, they will too." She sighed, leaning back like I was exhausting her. "God, you're acting like I set the place on fire. It was one cigarette. Chill out." Her dismissal hit me like a slap. I took a shaky breath. "You don't understand. This apartment is everything to me. If I lose it, I have nowhere to go. I can't afford anywhere else in this city." My throat tightened before I could finish. She studied me for a second, her face unreadable. Then she shrugged. "Well, maybe you're overreacting. You always do." And just like that, she turned back to her phone. Something inside me snapped. "Get out," I said, my voice low and firm. She froze, glancing up. "We're doing this again. I mean it. You're leaving today. Not tomorrow. Not Friday. Today." She narrowed her eyes. "Or what?" I didn't have an answer. I wasn't the kind of person who threatened people, let alone my best friend. But the look on her face told me she knew I had nothing. And maybe that's why she smirked, stood up slowly, and walked right past me into the kitchen. She opened one of my cabinets, grabbed a mug, and poured herself more coffee like she owned the place. "You're not going to do anything," she said casually. "You never do." That cut deeper than I expected, because part of me wondered if she was right. I'd always been the nice one, the one who let things slide, the one who bit my tongue to keep the peace. In college, when she'd blast music at 2 a.m. and our neighbors complained, I was the one who apologized. When she bailed on plans last minute, I told myself she was just flaky and tried not to be upset. But this was my home, my sanctuary, and she was tearing it apart. I couldn't keep being the nice one. So I grabbed my phone and pulled up my contacts. My finger hovered over my landlord's number. I thought about calling, confessing what had happened, begging for mercy before they came Friday. But then another name caught my eye. Claire. Claire was another friend of ours from college. She'd always been the mediator when Lena and I fought, the calm voice of reason. We hadn't talked much lately, but maybe she could talk sense into Lena. Before I could second-guess myself, I hit call. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, stranger. Long time no." "Claire," I blurted out, my voice shaking. "I need your help. It's about Lena." There was a pause. "What about her?" So I told her. About the cigarette. About the fight. About Lena refusing to leave. My words tumbled out fast, desperate, while I paced the kitchen. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. Finally, Claire sighed. "That sounds exactly like her." I froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean she does this. Pushes boundaries. Acts like it's not a big deal. You're not the first person she's done this to." My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" "Look," Claire said gently. "I don't want to stir things up more, but you really don't know? She crashed at my place last year. Same story. Smoked inside after I told her not to. When I asked her to leave, she pulled the same stunt. Refused. Made me feel like I was the bad guy. We didn't talk for months after." My head spun. I gripped the counter, my knees weak. "Why didn't you tell me?" Claire sighed again. "Because I didn't think it mattered. I thought maybe she'd grown up. But clearly she hasn't." I turned, staring into the living room where Lena sat sipping coffee, scrolling her phone like nothing was wrong. My best friend. The person I trusted. And suddenly, I wasn't sure I knew her at all. Before I could say anything else, Lena looked up from her phone and smirked. "Who are you calling about me?" she asked. And my stomach dropped, because she knew. I didn't even have to end the call with Claire before Lena's eyes were on me like searchlights. She'd shifted on the couch, one leg tucked under her, the other bouncing with that impatient rhythm she gets when she thinks she's about to win an argument by outlasting me. "Who are you calling about me?" she said, dragging out the last word. "Because that sounded like you were trying to rally troops." The way she said it made my face go hot. I put the phone down on the counter and willed my voice to be steady. "I called Claire. I needed advice." "Advice?" she scoffed. "About what, exactly?" "How to throw your friend out in the cold." "Cute." "About boundaries," I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. I cleared my throat. "About how to get you to respect mine." She tilted her head, a little smirk playing at her mouth. "So Claire's your boundaries coach now?" That's rich, considering she cut herself off, but the damage was done. My stomach dropped. "Considering she what?" I asked. She shrugged, but her shoulders were too stiff to be casual. "Nothing. Just, Claire has selective memory when it makes her look like the sensible one." I ignored that. I could argue about Claire later. "You can deflect all you want, Lena, but we're not doing this. You broke my one rule. You didn't apologize. You refused to leave. And now I'm playing defense in my own home." "I put the cigarette out," she said, holding up her hands. "I did what you asked." "No," I said softly, and it surprised me how calm I sounded. "You did the minimum after ignoring me." She sat back, eyes narrowing. Something in her expression flickered. Hurt? Anger? But then she shook her head, like she was brushing dust off a jacket. "You're overreacting. It's a smell. You open a window. End of story." I almost laughed, and it came out strangled. "It's my lungs. It's my lease. It's my life, Lena." We stared at each other across the small space of my living room, the kind of standoff that made the air feel heavy, thick. The city noise wafted up through the cracked window, a bus brake squealing, a delivery truck backing up, the faint clatter of a glass bottle rolling in the alley. My apartment, which usually felt like a soft sweater I could pull over my head, felt like a room with shrinking walls. "Okay," she said finally, clasping her hands together like she was about to make a deal. "What if I say I'm sorry? Will that fix it?" "Are you?" I asked. She blinked, thrown. "What? Are you sorry?" I said again. "Because it sounds like you just want me to drop it." Her jaw tightened. "I'm sorry you're mad." "There it is," I said. "That's not an apology." She rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd see the back of her skull. "What do you want me to say?" "I messed up. I get it. But you're acting like I broke into your place and vandalized the walls." It was one cigarette. I closed my eyes for a second. I could feel the familiar pinch behind my ribs, the slight whistle when I breathed in too fast. I reached into the drawer where I keep my inhaler and wrapped my fingers around it, just holding it like a talisman. "Friday is the inspection," I said. "If the unit smells, I could lose this place." "That's not dramatic, Lena. That's reality. If you respect me at all, you'll pack now and we'll deal with the rest later." Her gaze flicked to the inhaler. "You're not wheezing," she said, like she'd caught me in a lie. "You're fine." "I am not fine," I said, and I hated how my voice trembled. "I'm holding it together because if I don't, I'll start yelling and I don't want to yell at you." She stood then, too fast, the couch springs squeaking. "You've been yelling at me since last night." Raising my voice, I said, "Because you won't hear me otherwise." She took 2 steps, and we were almost nose to nose. Up close, I could smell her shampoo, the coffee on her breath, and the faint stale tang of smoke soaked into the fibers of her hoodie. "You know what your problem is?" she said, eyebrows lifting. "You think being right is the same thing as being kind." The words were a knife. I flinched. "You think being charming is the same thing as being decent." Her mouth opened, then closed. For a second we just breathed, and I could feel all the years between us. The sleepovers, the group projects, the hungover breakfasts, the 2 a.m. confessions in dimly lit kitchens, crack like thin ice. "Why are you here, really?" I asked, quieter now. "You said you needed a place until you figure some stuff out." "What stuff?" Her eyes flicked away. Her voice shifted, softer. "It's complicated." "I have time," I said. "Apparently we're not going anywhere." She looked at the door like it might sprout teeth. "I lost the job," she said, the words pushed out like they hurt. The new one at the restaurant. They cut my hours, then told me they needed someone more reliable. Which is code for, you talk back when the line cook grabs your waist to pass behind you. Then the guy I was seeing said he needed space. And my roommate, well, I guess ex-roommate, told me the lease was up and she didn't want to renew with me. So, yeah, I needed somewhere. You always used to say I could come to you. My chest loosened just a fraction, then tightened again. You can come to me, I said. But it's not a free pass to treat my home like a motel lobby. Her face crumpled, then hardened in a heartbeat. One cigarette. To calm down after the day I had. That's all. Not all, I said. It's about the way you handled it after. You made me feel small in my own place. You mocked me. You sat down like a dare. Her tongue ran along her teeth. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time it sounded less like a line and more like a dented truth. I am. I didn't think. She exhaled through her nose and rubbed her temples. It's just so cold out there today, and going down 6 flights for a cigarette sounds stupid when there's a window right here. Then don't smoke, I said, before I could swallow it back. Her head snapped up. It's not that simple. I know, I said, and I did. I wasn't trying to play her therapist. But this is my boundary. I'm not asking you to change your life. I'm asking you to respect me and mine. A muscle in her cheek twitched. Slowly, she reached into the pocket of her hoodie and pulled out the crumpled soft pack. For a second I thought she was going to hand it to me like a peace offering. Instead she turned, walked to the window, and pushed it open wider. My heart stuttered. Lena. She already had one pinched between 2 fingers. It'll be out the window. Chill. My fingers moved before my brain did. I crossed the room and closed my hand over the cigarette and lighter both. No, I said, and my voice surprised both of us. Not in here. Not leaning out. Not on the fire escape. Not anywhere connected to my unit. She yanked her hand back. The lighter clattered to the floor. The cigarette bent in my fist. For a breathless second, we just stared at each other. 2 stubborn kids playing tug-of-war with a single line of adulthood. Then, knock, knock, knock. We both jumped. The knocks were quick and clipped, the kind that carry authority through cheap wood. Lena's face went pale. I set the mangled cigarette on the windowsill and smoothed my hair, which was silly because my heart was pounding like I'd sprinted. I opened the door. It was Mrs. Ortega from 3B, holding a grocery bag and wearing her quilted coat with the faded floral lining. She's in her late 60s and walks her little terrier like it's a religious practice. Behind her, hovering in the hallway, was the building manager, Russ, with his clipboard and tired eyes. Morning, Mrs. Ortega said, and her voice was kind but firm. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry to bother, but my bathroom smells like smoke through the vent again. Russ lifted a hand in a half-wave. Hey, my name. We got 2 calls about smoke on this floor last night and this morning. Heat rushed to my face. There was someone. I looked back at Lena, who stared at the floor like it might open and swallow her. Russ sniffed. He didn't have to. The hint was there, faint but unmistakable. You know this is a non-smoking building, he said, not unkindly, just weary. I know, I said. I know. It won't happen again. His eyes ticked to Lena, clocking the pack on the sill, the way her hands hid inside her sleeves. He made a little note on the clipboard. Look, I'm not here to make your life hard, but I do have to report complaints. And inspections are Friday. He softened as he said it, like he was handing me a warning flyer rather than a ticket. Do what you gotta do. Mrs. Ortega patted my arm. I like you, dear. I don't want you in trouble. The Vints love to share everything in this place, you know? I swallowed. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Ortega. My eyes stung. They both left with little nods. The door clicked shut. I leaned my forehead against it for a second, my breath puffing a fog on the cold wood. When I turned back, Lena was staring at me with something like shame and something like defiance knotted together. So now the whole building hates me, she said, her voice flat. This isn't about who likes you, I said. It's about consequences. She laughed once, no humor in it. You would love that word. I don't love it, I said. I live with it. She looked at the pack on the sill, then at me. What do you want me to do, my name? Give you a speech? Collapse at your feet? I messed up. Fine. What now? What now, I said, is you pack your things. I'll help you carry them down. I'll call you a ride to your parents or to a friend. But you can't stay here. Her mouth twisted. You're really doing this? I am. She stared at me for a long beat. Then she nodded once, sharply, like a soldier taking orders. Fine, she said, and went to the couch to start stuffing clothes into her backpack. I didn't move at first. Part of me wanted to say, thank you. Part of me wanted to crumble. Instead, I walked to the kitchen and started gathering the ashtray she'd used, the bottle cap full of gray flecks, the lighter from the floor, the pack on the sill. I put them in a plastic grocery bag, tied it tight, and dropped it in the outside trash chute down the hall, so I wouldn't be tempted to soften. When I came back, Lena was zipping her backpack and bundling her hoodie. She looked at me with a strange expression, like she was cataloging the room. Her gaze lingered on the framed photo on the bookshelf. The three of us, me, Lena, and Claire, at the beach during senior year, wind whipping our hair, laughing at something the photographer had shouted. We looked wild and young, and so sure we'd always be on the same team. You keep that out? She asked, nodding toward the frame. Of course, I said. That was a good day. She huffed, and almost laughed that wasn't happy. Yeah, before we turned into people with rules and inspections. Or before we learn what happens when you ignore both, I said, and I didn't mean it to be cruel, but it landed that way anyway. She flinched like I'd flicked water in her face. I picked up my phone to request a ride. As the app spun, a text popped up from an unknown number. For a second I thought it was the landlord again, or maybe Russ with a follow-up. But when I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a screenshot of our old group chat, houseplants and heartburn, the one that used to be me, Lena, Claire, and a few others. The message at the bottom was from a number saved once as Jules Herb, but now just digits, probably because I'd switched phones. So, Lena says, my name, has always been controlling about her space and once made her smoke on the fire escape in a snowstorm? Are we surprised? Under it, another, honestly not shocked. Remember sophomore year? She called the RA on us for having candles, LOL. My chest tightened, not from asthma this time, but from that old familiar shame, being called strict, uptight, a killjoy. The texts were from 15 minutes ago. Lena had been talking to them while we were in the same room. I looked up slowly. Lena was avoiding my eyes, the backpack strap clutched in her hand. You started a smear campaign while I was making you coffee? I asked quietly. She bit her lip. I vented to friends. You told them I made you smoke in a snowstorm. I could hear my voice go small and dangerous. You left out the part where you lit a cigarette in my kitchen. She said nothing. The ride request pinged. Driver arriving in 4 minutes. I swallowed hard. Your car's almost here, I said. Let's go. She stood rooted. For a second, I thought she'd dig in again. Then she shouldered the backpack and walked to the door. She paused, fingers grazing the knob, then whirled back. You're going to post about this, aren't you? She said. Write some long essay about boundaries and respect, and paint me as the reckless friend who never grew up. I don't need to paint you, I said. You've done an excellent self-portrait. Her face shuddered. Enjoy your perfect little apartment, she said, and yanked the door open. Cold air rushed in from the stairwell. She stepped out, then leaned back in and said, quieter, you know what Claire didn't tell you? She's the one who offered me a cigarette when I crashed with her. She just wanted to be the cool host. She only got mad when her boyfriend said it smelled. So maybe get the full story before you take sides. The door swung shut before I could answer. I stood in the center of my living room, which still smelled like citrus cleaner and the faintest ghost of smoke, and tried to breathe. I thought of Claire's voice on the phone, careful and neutral. I thought of Lena's hand shaking just slightly when she shoved the pack into her hoodie pocket. I thought of Friday, and Russ's clipboard, and Mrs. Ortega's kind eyes. Then, from down the stairwell, there was a sudden clatter, like something metal tipping over, and a muffled curse from Lena. I hurried to the door, heart in my mouth, and came face to face with the landlord, Mr. Chun, climbing the stairs with a ring of keys and a folded inspection checklist in his hand. He looked up, eyebrows lifting in surprise. Oh, good morning, he said. I'm running early today. Thought I'd do a few spot checks before Friday. And just like that, my stomach dropped through the floor. Mr. Chun is at my door with a surprise spot check, and the hallway still smells faintly like smoke. Mr. Chun is not a tall man, but he has a presence that makes him seem like he fills doorways. He's always cordial, always precise, the kind of person who reads every line of a form and actually expects you to have read it too. Seeing him on a Tuesday with a clipboard felt like a teacher showing up in homeroom with a pop quiz, and I was the kid who definitely hadn't done the reading. "Good morning," I managed, voice catching. "I thought inspections were Friday." "They are," he said, unbothered. "But the city's doing some fire safety spot checks this week, and I like to avoid surprises." He glanced past me into the apartment, polite but assessing. "May I?" My brain did a sprint around the track of options. Say no? That would look suspicious. Say yes? That meant letting him into a space that had been smoky less than 24 hours ago. I could feel the air around me, searching for any hint that would betray me. "Of course," I said and stepped back. My hands were steady, which felt like a miracle. He paused on the threshold and sniffed. I held my breath without meaning to. "Do you smell that?" he asked, nose wrinkling. My heart thudded so loud I wondered if he could hear it. "What?" He squinted thoughtfully. "Someone on this floor is using a lot of air freshener." "Always makes me suspicious," he said, but he smiled a little to soften it, like we were sharing a joke about tenants who think citrus spray can erase violations. The citrus, unfortunately, was me. I forced a laugh that sounded like a hiccup. "I was cleaning this morning." "Good," he said, and stepped inside. He moved methodically. Smoke detector test, blinking green. Stove knobs, off. Under sink plumbing, no leaks. Water heater closet, clear. Windows, latches working. When he got to the living room, he paused at the window, pushed it another inch open, then closed it and sniffed again. I went dizzy for a second from the adrenaline. "Everything looks in order," he said, checking boxes, the sweetest music I'd heard in days. "I'll still see you Friday, but this helps me move faster." "That's great," I said, and I meant it. Relief pricked my eyes. Then he turned, his gaze landing on the coffee table. He frowned. "What happened here?" he asked, pointing to a barely there crescent of ash I hadn't seen. One gray smudge near a coaster, as small as a thumbprint, but as loud as a siren in my head. "Oh," I said too brightly. "I burned incense last night." The lie tasted like the citrus spray. He considered me for a beat. "Incense is against building policy too," he said mildly. "Right?" I said, cheeks flaming. "Sorry, I won't." He nodded, wrote something on his paper. "What?" And then smiled again. "See you Friday," he said, and left, the door shutting with a soft click. I stayed frozen, listening to his steps recede down the hall, listening for any altered rhythm that might mean he'd stopped at Russ's desk to discuss me. Nothing. Just the faint jingle of keys, and then silence. When I finally exhaled, it came out in a rush that made me lightheaded. I leaned against the door and slid down to the floor, laughing once in a way that sounded borderline unhinged. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt like a person who had outrun a wave by half a step and still had seawater in their shoes. My phone buzzed. "The ride app. Your driver is here." I scrambled up and opened the door. Lena was halfway down the second flight, crouched to pick up her backpack where it had spilled open. A makeup bag rolled 2 steps further. A hairbrush clattered another. She was muttering under her breath, the words shapeless, raw. "Your car's outside," I called. She looked up, startled, saw my face, and then saw Mr. Chun disappearing on the landing below. Her eyes widened. "Did he smell it?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said. "I think I got lucky." I didn't say this time. She swallowed. For a second, something like gratitude crossed her features, fleeting as a sunbeam in a storm. "I'll be out in a second," she said. "Can you?" She gestured to the hairbrush. I went down 2 steps, grabbed it, and handed it to her. Our fingers didn't touch. She stuffed it into the bag and zipped the seams with jerky movements that made her knuckles go white. We navigated the rest in a strained, efficient silence, the kind that says everything loud enough to drown out chatter. At the building's front door, the driver idled at the curb, the exhaust making little clouds in the cold. I held the door open. She hesitated on the threshold. "Where are you going?" I asked. She blinked slowly. I could see the calculations behind her eyes. Pride versus practicality. Anger versus the need for a couch. "My parents," she said at last, voice flat. "They'll give me a lecture. I deserve one." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. She stepped out into the cold, then pivoted back. "I'll get my stuff later," she said. "You have your stuff?" I said. "My other bag," she said, and her gaze cut upward toward my place like a compass caught on a magnet. "In your hall closet." I felt a little jolt of confusion. What other bag? The tote, she said, impatience carving a groove between her brows. Black canvas. I put it in there when I came in the first night. The first night. I tried to picture it. Had I seen a bag there? The closet is small and buried under coats and boxes. I'll check, I said slowly. Text me what it looks like. She nodded, pulled her hood up, and went to the car. The driver glanced at me over the roof, curious, but not enough to ask. I gave a weak wave, and they drove away. Back upstairs, the apartment felt like a hotel room after checkout, familiar but hollowed. I opened the hall closet and started moving things aside. Umbrella, toolbox, box of winter scarves, vacuum, shoe rack. There was no black canvas tote. I crouched, feeling around the back. My fingers touched the ridged cardboard of an old storage box labeled with a Sharpie, taxes/lease docs. Behind it, wedged where the wall's molding juts, something thin and plasticky rasped under my knuckles. I pulled it out, a gallon-sized zipper bag. Inside, a lighter, 2 unopened cigarette packs, a roll of mints, and a small glass vial filled with something I didn't recognize, tiny pale beads like seeds or sand, sealed with a rubber stopper. A smell, sweet, chemical, breathed out when I cracked the outer bag's seal. My stomach lurched. I wasn't naive enough to not know what paraphernalia looked like, but this wasn't anything I'd seen in health class slideshows. I zipped it back up, hands trembling, a flicker of anger and fear sparking together. I texted Lena, found a zip bag with cigs, etc. No tote. Her response was immediate. Do not open that. I stared at the screen. Too late. What is it? A pause. Then, just throw it out. Please. The please was louder than anything she'd said in 2 days. I felt like the floor dropped half an inch. What is it, Lena? Dots. Stop. Dots. Stop. Finally, it's nothing illegal. It's for a friend. I was holding it. Just get rid of it. Every cautionary tale I'd ever heard about holding something for a friend rang through my head like a chorus. I set the bag on the kitchen counter and backed away from it like it might bite. My phone lit again, this time Claire. You okay? Want me to come over? She must have felt the aftershocks of that call earlier and sent a check-in. I'm fine, I typed. Mostly. She left. But I found something in my closet. What kind of something? A bag. Cigs. Something else. She says to toss it. Do not throw it in your building trash. Claire wrote so fast the letters almost blurred. If it's anything sketchy and they trace it to you, it's your problem, not hers. Bag it. Bring it to my place. We'll figure it out. I stared at the counter where the zipper bag sat like a small, malevolent animal. I pictured Mr. Chen's clipboard, Russ's tired eyes, Mrs. Ortega's terrier snuffling at the vents. I pictured Friday and how far away and close it felt at the same time. My chest tightened again, and I reached for my inhaler without looking, pressing it to my lips and taking a measured breath. The relief was as much psychological as physical. Another text pinged from a number I hadn't seen in years. Is Lena okay? She says you kicked her out. It was Jules, apparently, the group chat participant with the plan emoji. My head spun. How fast did stories travel? How fast did they mutate on the turnpike of gossip? I didn't respond. Instead, I grabbed a second plastic bag from under the sink, nested the zipper bag inside, and tied the handles tight. I put on my coat, slid my feet into boots, and stood for a full minute with my hand on the light switch, listening to the quiet apartment hum. The fridge, the heater, the whisper of traffic. I didn't want to leave, but I also didn't want that mystery vial in my home a second longer. As I turned to go, there was a new knock at the door. 3 soft taps, hesitant. For a wild heartbeat, I thought Mr. Chun had returned, maybe with a follow-up question about incense. I opened the door and found myself looking at a young woman I didn't recognize, 22, maybe, with a knit beanie shoved back on her head and a nervous half-smile. She hugged a puffy jacket around herself like armor. Hi, she said. Sorry, are you my name? I am, I said, clutching the plastic bag tighter. She shifted on her feet. I'm Tessa, she said. I'm a friend of Lena's. Every muscle in my body went taut. Okay, she told me to come by, Tessa said, eyes flicking past me into the apartment with the casual greed of strangers. To pick up the tote bag in your closet. My mouth went dry. There is no tote bag, I said carefully. She chewed the inside of her cheek, thinking. She said you'd know. I don't, I said. And this is not a good time. Could I just? She took a half step toward the threshold. angling her body like she meant to slide past me. I shifted, blocking the doorway without making it look like I was. No. Her gaze dropped to my hands. What's that? Trash, I said too fast. Tessa's eyes sharpened. She smiled a little, like a cat that had just noticed a bird. Right, she said. Trash. Look, Lena said this was important, and I'm doing her a favor, okay? She's having a really bad week. I know, I said, and some of the true sadness in me must have slipped into my voice, because Tessa's expression softened a fraction. Then it hardened again. Maybe I could just check the closet myself, she said, like this was reasonable. Absolutely not, I said, heartbeat drumming. You're not coming into my apartment. She raised both hands. Whoa, okay. Then, as if remembering a script, she added lightly, no stress. I'll tell her you didn't have it. Do that, I said, and closed the door gently but decisively. I stood there with my back to it, feeling more shaken than I wanted to admit. After a minute, footsteps retreated. I looked through the peephole. Tessa stood in the hallway for a while, texting furiously, then left. I texted Lena. A girl named Tessa just showed up asking for a tote. No dots. No reply. I stared at the screen until the text blurred. Then another message, from Claire. Do you want me to pick you up? We can grab coffee, breathe, then deal with the thing. Please, I wrote. Yes. I locked the door, double-checked the window latches, and put the double-bagged whatever it was into my backpack. I tucked the inhaler into my coat pocket and tried to still the shaking in my hands. I was almost to the door when I remembered the ash smudge on the coffee table. It felt symbolic, like the house wasn't clean until that shadow was gone. I grabbed a sponge and some baking soda, rubbed gently, watched the gray dissolve into suds. When the wood looked like itself again, I rinsed the sponge and wrung it until the water ran clear. My phone buzzed one more time. A new message from Lena. Don't give anything to Claire. Just throw it out. Meet me. I typed before I could stop myself. At the coffee shop on 5th. In 20. We talk. You tell me the truth. Then I decide what to do. A full minute. 2. Then, fine. 20. I zipped my coat, shouldered the backpack, and stepped into the hallway, locking the door behind me with a finality that made my throat tighten. The building smelled like laundry detergent and dust. On the second-floor landing, I passed Russ, who nodded at me, eyes flicking to the backpack like he could sense I carried something heavy that wasn't just fabric and zippers. Outside, the air bit my face, clean and cold. I walked fast, the city scrolling past in a jittery montage. A guy selling roasted nuts on the corner, steam billowing. A woman arguing into a headset. A kid in a puffy jacket happily stomping through a slushy puddle. My breath made little clouds. Each step grounded me. Coffee first. Answers next. The bell over the coffee shop door chimed when I pushed in. It smelled like cinnamon and espresso and the faint dry scent of pastry cases. I spotted Claire immediately, booth in the back, hair tucked into a beanie, worry knitting her forehead. I slid into the seat opposite and, without preamble, put the double-bagged stash on the table between us like a strange centerpiece. Claire stared at it. So that's the something. That's the something, I said. Before either of us could add anything, the bell chimed again. Lena stood in the doorway, hair pulled into a messy bun, cheeks pink from the cold. Her eyes went to the bag on the table, then to me, then to Claire. The line of her shoulders changed, anger coiling like a spring. Seriously, she said, striding over. You brought her. You told me to throw it out, I said. I'm not throwing out something I don't understand. We talk first. She slid into the booth, crowding the air with her presence. Okay, she said. Talk. What is it? I asked, and I tried to keep my voice gentle. Don't say nothing. We're past that. Her jaw worked. She looked at Claire, then at me, then at the bag again, eyes skittering. It's not illegal, she said finally, eyes flashing. It's poppers. I blinked. What? Claire recovered faster. Are you kidding me? She said, exasperation and relief colliding. You hid that in my name as closet? It's for a friend, Lena said defensively. They asked me to hold it, and then I forgot. It's not a big deal. It's legal to buy. It's just frowned upon. My shoulders dropped half an inch, adrenaline easing a tiny notch, then ratcheting back up when I thought of Tessa at my door. Then why send someone to my apartment to retrieve a tote that doesn't exist? Lena flinched. Because I didn't want you to freak out like this. Like what? I asked. Like a person who doesn't want random substances in her closet 2 days before an inspection? You didn't even know it was there, she shot back. That's the problem, I said. If the building found it and decided to make it my issue, I would have been blindsided. Claire put both palms flat on the table. Okay, she said. We have a plan. I'll take it to my place. No inspection, no Mrs. Ortega through the vents, no Mr. Chun with pop quizzes, and I'll dispose of it safely. We are not leaving this in my name, apartment. Agreed? Lena looked between us like a trapped animal. Agreed, she said tightly. But I want it back to give to my friend. It's expensive. Then your friend can meet you at your parents', I said. Or literally anywhere that isn't my home. For a long beat, nobody said anything. The espresso machine hissed. A waitress called out a name for a latte. The world kept moving. Finally, Lena's shoulders sagged. I shouldn't have smoked in your apartment, she said quietly, eyes on the table. I shouldn't have tried to make you feel crazy for caring. I'm sorry. Really sorry. She looked up, and there was wetness she didn't wipe away. I'm drowning right now. I've been pretending I'm fine by making everything a joke. But I'm not fine. I felt something soften in me, not forgiveness yet, but the possibility of it. I believe you, I said. And I still need you not to set me on fire while you're drowning. That got the tiniest snort out of her, the ghost of our old rhythm. Claire exhaled, and some of the heat leached out of the space. Okay, I said. Ground rules if we're going to keep being in each other's lives. You don't smoke in my place, ever. You don't store anything at my place without my permission. And you don't send strangers to my door. She nodded, small. Okay. And, I said, because the words wanted out, you don't tell people stories that make me into a villain. She winced. I'll text the group chat, she said. I'll set it straight. We sat with that. For a second, it felt like the line had stopped tugging us in opposite directions, like maybe we could stand on the same side of it again. The barista set 3 waters at the edge of the table without being asked. I took a sip and felt the cold ground me again. That's when my phone buzzed. Another text. This one from an unknown number again, different from Jules's. Hi, this is Officer Ramirez with SPD Community Response. We received a request for a welfare check from a tenant in your building reporting a possible domestic dispute and ongoing smoking violations. Are you available to speak in person at your residence within the hour? I stared at the message. You have got to be kidding me, I whispered. Claire frowned. What? I showed them the text. Lena's eyes went wide. I didn't call anyone, she said quickly. I swear. I don't think you did, I said, a chill crawling up my spine. But someone did. Claire's face went tight in a way I recognized. Her crisis mode, efficient and kind. Okay, she said. We'll go with you. We'll explain. We'll make sure this doesn't spiral. I nodded, heart picking up speed again. I looked at the double-bagged vial, then at Lena, then at the door of the coffee shop where the world outside still ran on time and bus routes and people late to meetings. For a brief second, I imagined none of this was mine to handle, that I could walk out and let the apartment handle itself, let the friendship resolve offstage. Instead, I slid out of the booth, grabbed the bag, and said, let's go. We stepped into the cold as one, breath fogging, and turned toward home. I thought of Mr. Chen's clipboard. I thought of Russ's note. I thought of Mrs. Ortega's kind eyes. And I thought of a police officer at my door, asking questions I wasn't sure how to answer without saying something that might echo back through my lease like a crack. When we rounded the corner of my block, I saw the patrol car idling by the curb. An officer in a navy beanie stood on the stoop, gloved hands tucked under her arms, watching our approach with a neutral expression. She looked up as we came closer. Are you my name? She asked. I nodded, swallowing hard. Hi, she said, voice calm. I'm Officer Ramirez. We got a call from a neighbor about smoke and raised voices. Just want to make sure everyone's safe and, abiding by building rules. Her eyes flicked from me to Lena to the bag in my hand. Can we talk inside? She asked. And just like that, my neatly rehearsed answers scattered like birds. A police officer is waiting at my building for a welfare check and smoking complaint, right as I'm holding the bag Lena begged me to toss. Officer Ramirez's voice was calm, but my heart pounded like it was trying to get out of my chest. I glanced at Lena, whose hands were buried deep in her hoodie pocket, her shoulders tense. Claire gave me a quick side look that basically said, don't panic, just breathe. Sure, I said finally, forcing a smile. We can talk inside. As I unlocked the door, all I could think was please don't smell anything. Please don't see the bag. I held it tighter, wishing it would disappear. Inside, the apartment felt suddenly small. Ramirez glanced around, taking in the windows, the table, the faint citrus smell hanging in the air. We've had complaints about smoke, she said. Can you tell me what's going on? I hesitated. Claire jumped in smoothly. There was an incident, but it's been handled. No ongoing issue. Ramirez's eyes flicked to the bag in my hand. And what's that? She asked. My throat went dry. Before I could answer, Lena spoke up. It's mine. The air seemed to freeze the moment Lena claimed the bag. Officer Ramirez's eyes narrowed slightly, but her tone stayed even. Yours, huh? Mind if I take a look? My stomach dropped. Lena's jaw tightened. It's not illegal, she said quickly. Ramirez raised a brow. That's not what I asked. Claire touched my arm under the table, a silent don't intervene. I watched, heart hammering, as Lena reluctantly slid the bag across the counter. Ramirez unzipped it, sniffed, and frowned. Poppers. Not illegal, but you can't be storing this in a building with a no-chemical policy. It could get you both written up. Her words stung. Both. My lease felt like it was dangling over a shredder. Ramirez zipped it shut and pushed it back toward me. Handle it responsibly. If we get another complaint, I'll have no choice but to escalate. She gave us all a pointed look before leaving. The door clicked shut. Lena sagged into a chair, face pale. I swear I didn't mean for it to get this far. That's when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my landlord. We need to talk. Tonight. My landlord's text glared at me like a warning light on a dashboard. We need to talk. Tonight. I stared at it, pulse racing, then showed Claire and Lena. Claire muttered, "That doesn't sound good." Lena's face twisted. He's bluffing. Probably just wants to scare you. But I knew Mr. Chun. He never bluffed. My chest tightened with dread. If he thinks I broke the lease, I'm done. The silence that followed was unbearable. Lena opened her mouth like she wanted to say sorry again, but no words came out. That evening, I heard the knock. Heavy, deliberate. Mr. Chin stood there with Russ beside him. My heart sank. We've had multiple complaints, Mr. Chin said flatly. We need to confirm your unit isn't in violation before Friday. I swallowed. Now. Yes, now. I stepped aside, praying the citrus spray had worked its miracle. And then Lena blurted, "It was my fault. Don't take it out on her." The room went dead quiet. Mr. Chin's eyebrows lifted, his pen pausing above the clipboard. Russ shifted uncomfortably. Your fault? Mr. Chin asked slowly. Lena's voice cracked. Yeah, I smoked. She told me not to. I ignored her. She begged me to stop, and I didn't. If anyone deserves to get written up, it's me. I stared at her, stunned. This was the first time she had said it clearly, without dodging, without minimizing. Mr. Chin frowned. The leaseholder is responsible for their guests, but I appreciate your honesty. He looked at me. Consider this your warning, my name. If we get another complaint, I'll have no choice but to terminate. Then, softer, you've been a good tenant. Don't let this happen again. When they left, I nearly collapsed onto the couch. Relief washed through me, but the damage between Lena and me still ached raw. Claire whispered, that was close. Lena sat silently, staring at the floor, tears streaking her cheeks. The next morning, Lena packed quietly. No drama, no excuses, just folding clothes and slipping them into her worn duffel. I made coffee, neither of us speaking much. When she finally zipped the bag shut, she looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I messed up worse than I thought I could, she said. I can't fix it overnight, but I'll try. I don't want to lose you as a friend. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I want to believe you, I said honestly, but I need space, respect, trust. If you can give me that, maybe we'll find our way back. She nodded, shouldered her bag, and left without another word. The apartment felt strangely hollow, but also lighter, like I could breathe again. Later that night, Claire texted, you did the right thing. Boundaries aren't cruelty. And maybe, for the first time, I believed it. But when I opened the closet to grab my coat, my stomach dropped. Tucked behind the vacuum, where I swear I'd checked twice, was a second black canvas tote. I froze in the doorway of the closet, staring at the black canvas tote like it had materialized out of nowhere. My heart thudded. I pulled it out carefully, half expecting it to be empty. It wasn't. Inside were clothes I'd never seen before. men's clothes, a worn leather jacket, and tucked into a pocket, a small envelope of cash. Underneath that, another sealed zipper bag, this one with white powder pressed into a hard brick shape. My blood went cold. This wasn't poppers. This wasn't harmless. My phone buzzed, a text from Lena. Did you find it? I almost dropped the tote. She knew. I typed back with shaking fingers. Yes. What is this? Dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, don't touch it. Please. I'll explain. Before I could respond, there was another knock at the door. This time harder, sharper. I peeked through the peephole. It wasn't Lena. It was Tessa. And she wasn't alone. Through the peephole, I saw Tessa flanked by two men I didn't recognize. Both tall, both with that restless energy that made my stomach twist. One of them knocked again, harder. Open up, Tessa called, her voice too bright to be friendly. I stepped back, clutching the tote. My mind raced. If they came in and found this, if my landlord found out, if the cops came back, I'd lose everything. My phone buzzed again. Lena, do not let them in. Please, call me. I didn't. I called 911. My voice shook as I explained, but dispatch didn't waste time. Within minutes, flashing lights painted the street below. Tessa and the two men vanished down the stairwell as officers stormed in. I handed over the tote, my heart in my throat. Later, one officer told me quietly, "You did the right thing. This isn't small time. Stay away from her friends." When the door finally shut and silence returned, I sat on my couch, staring at the clean coffee table, breathing in air that finally smelled like nothing at all. For the first time in days, I felt safe. Lena's final text came an hour later. I'm sorry. For everything. Maybe one day, I'll earn your trust back. But not today. I didn't reply. Because some boundaries aren't just rules. They're survival.